Welcome to Colitco News Network. Today we have with us Dr. Mike Jones, Managing Director, Impact Minerals Limited, a company at the forefront of critical mineral space and innovation. It's a pleasure to have you, Dr. Jones, with us. How are you doing?
I'm great, Bella, and thanks for inviting me on today. Look, this is my first interview with you guys, with Colitco, and it's been a good experience so far, and it's also my first interview for 2025, so we're hitting the ground running here.
Absolutely. Happy New Year to you as well. So let's get started by talking about Impact Minerals' flagship project, Lake Hope. Impact Minerals has made significant strides with this project, and it's clear that the company is an exciting journey to make a difference in the critical mineral space. High purity alumina, or HPA, is an emerging cornerstone in sectors like LED manufacturing, EV batteries, and even semiconductors. So could you share your vision for this project and its significance from a global perspective in the critical mineral supply chain?
So high purity alumina, as you pointed out, is a little well known but crucial part of the energy transition that we're all going through. So it's not a high volume business, but it's a crucial part of many industries like electric vehicles, as we mentioned, where it's a very important component in lithium ion batteries. It's increasingly important in things like medical ceramics, semiconductors, sapphire glass is a vastly growing market for artificial sapphire, and that's what high purity alumina is. Okay, alumina is aluminium oxide. It occurs in a number of different forms, and one of those forms is sapphire, and the other form is corundum, which is actually one of the hardest substances known to man. It's thermally inert and chemically inert. And so if you can make this material very pure, then it can command extremely high prices in a vast array of markets. And so the thing about our Lake Hope project is that we believe that we can deliver that high purity alumina at a relatively lower cost than most of our competitors globally. And so that, of course, gives us a foothold into this rapidly expanding market. And so our vision is really to bring the project into production over the next couple of years. It'll be small scale to start off with, but we think it'll be profitable almost from day one. And we're going to grow step by step over the next few years. And it's a great journey for our investors to come with us on.
So you've described HPA as transformational for Impact Minerals. And what specific market dynamics or innovations sets your project apart from the others?
A number of ways of making high purity alumina. You can use natural feedstocks, which is what Lake Hope is. You can use chemical feedstocks, and some of our competitors have been doing that. But we believe that Lake Hope is a natural feedstock. It offers a number of advantages, in particular that the material that we're going to mine and dig up is actually in the top 2 meters of a salt lake called Lake Hope. And it's about 500 kilometers east of here in Perth in Western Australia, which is one of the best places to work in the mining industry in the world. So we came across the project almost 2 years ago. It'll be 2 years ago in early April this year, and we progressed it, incredibly quickly. And because of the ease of mining, so all we're going to do is dig up the top 2 meters of the lake. It's going to give it a very low environmental footprint, very low carbon footprint. We're going to move the material off-site and bring it into the industrial area in Perth called Kwinana, and that's where we're going to build the processing plant. So that does a couple of things. First of all, it should make the granting of the mining lease relatively straightforward, because all we're going to do is leave a hole in the lake about 1 meter or 2 deep, and that will fill in naturally over the next 5 or 10 years. So there'll be hardly any evidence that we were mining there. In Perth, in the industrial area, it's also much easier to get industrial plants permitted. And so we believe that together we should be able to get the project up and running in a much quicker fashion than, say, a copper mine. And we know nowadays that it can take anything up to 15 years for a copper mine from discovery to get into production. And we believe that we'll be able to get Lake Hope into production within 5 years or less. And so we're sort of approaching halfway through that journey. So all of these things combined, including the nature of the material that we're actually going to process, it leads us to believe that we have a relatively straightforward process and that we can provide cost-effective high purity alumina into the market, and that's going to be one of our competitive advantages. So very excited to bring that project to fruition in the next few years.
We do are excited to hear this from you, Dr. Jones. But my next question, a follow-up question would be that you recently announced a Lake Hope's maiden measured resource. So what does this milestone mean for the project's advancement and investors' confidence?
So when we talk about resources, that's actually an official term, and perhaps a lot of investors aren't quite aware of it. But when you first start to drill a project out, you normally have a quite wide spacing between the drill holes. And so there's a lot of uncertainty between the drill holes, both in terms of the geology and also what the amount of mineral that you have in there is, okay? And so over time, as you get more confident, you drill more holes and they get closer. And that allows us to be more confident about how much material is going to be there when we actually dig it up out of the ground. And so we go from an inferred resource, as they call it, which is widespread drilling and with a lot of uncertainty, and then we go indicated, and then finally we get to measured. And that's when we're getting really quite a tight control on how much material we think there, in this case, how much alumina we think is in the top 2 meters of the lake, and how confident we are that when we dig it up and take it to the processing plant, that alumina is going to be there. So a measured resource becomes very important because you can then hang economic numbers around it, and you're allowed then, under the rules and regulations of the stock exchange, to put that out into a financial study. So, and that's we're on the verge of doing that in the next few months.
That's fantastic. So while coming pre-feasibility study or PFS is going to begin in the coming months, what should the investors expect from this report in 2025?
So the pre-feasibility study, or it's a preliminary feasibility study, that's what it's short for, will be the second report that we put out, which has got some economics, the actual how much money we can possibly make and how long the mine will operate for. And so to get to that level, we've done a lot of fairly detailed studies. And that study builds on what's called a scoping study, which is a bit like inferred drilling. It's like there's a lot of unknowns, and as we go through the feasibility studies, we have to get more and more confident about the numbers, about the chemistry, about everything about the project into the pre-feasibility study. And even further on from that, which we'll talk about, the definitive feasibility study requires even more detail. So right now we're trying to put together the pre-feasibility study. That should be done by the end of this quarter, say March or April, and that'll be more or less the second anniversary since we got the project. So that's a very, very quick turnaround, let me tell you. And so the thing about the measured resource is that, as I said, that allows us to hang some numbers, financial numbers around the project, and we can get what's called a reserve. Now, a reserve is a very important stepping stone to get to. The banks then can start looking at you saying, this looks like it's starting to firm up as a very good looking project. So what we can look for are some key numbers that investors will be looking for. So one is the capital expenditure. So how much is it actually going to cost us to dig up the material, build the plant and get into production? And we're looking to, in a theoretical world, looking at 10,000 tons per annum of high purity alumina. Doesn't sound very much, but in fact, that's a very valuable product. And then the second one is how much does it cost us to produce a ton of high purity alumina? And that's where we think that we've got the edge on many of our competitors. So at the moment, a lot of the studies have been done. We're very focused on what the operating cost is going to be. And that's the focus of our work over the next couple of months as we put the whole report together. And then hopefully March or April, we should have a very good looking pre-feasibility study to come out for investors. And that will give them an insight into the value of the project.
Great insight for our investors. And I'm sure they'll be excited as well to hear, what you just shared with us. Amazing. However, I feel collaboration is the central theme for Impact Minerals, from your partnerships such as CPC Engineering and the Edith Cowan University. And recently you were awarded a 2.9 million federal grant. So how do these alliances accelerate the Lake Hope project? And would it really affect the timelines and the objectives?
That's true. We back in November, we were awarded a $2.9 million grant from the federal government, Australian federal government. And that's part of a $6 million project that we had pitched to the government to get funding in conjunction with two groups. So the first one is CPC Engineering. They're a local firm here in Perth, and they've been doing all the design work for our 10,000 tonne per annum large plant that we hope to get into production. They are a very creative group. They're small, they're a WA company, but they do have in-house high purity alumina experience. And a lady there in particular, Eugenia Fegan, she identified this opportunity for us in conjunction with Edith Cowan University. Now, Edith Cowan University is becoming increasingly well known for the use of membranes to help clean up liquids that are involved in all parts of the mining cycle. Now, membrane is simply something, it's a piece of plastic or a piece of ceramic, which basically extracts certain elements that can either be a contamination or an element that you're actually interested in. And so Edith Cowan have been taking technology that's been used widely in the water sector and bringing it into the mining sector. They already have a couple of patents in the lithium industry and the rubidium industry. And we believe that we can crack a big problem in the mining industry, which is the separation of iron and aluminium using these membranes, as either in particular the ceramic ones, which will allow us to really clean up the liquid that we have and get to high purity alumina a lot quicker and a lot cheaper. So the three together, is almost a world-beating combination. We have the project, we've got some very innovative thinkers, we've got Edith Cowan there, and we've got CPC Engineering. And so that's going to allow us to move forward very quickly on the project. And it's a 3-year project. We've already started, and we should be seeing some kick-starting of that in the next month or so.
While we see the value add, you sharing with us the insight, speaking about the funding, you also secured a $512,000 R&D rebate. So how does this fit into the broader strategy of scaling operations, along with remaining innovative?
The grant is that it's going to accelerate the building of what we call a pilot plant. So we've done a lot of bench scale test work in the laboratory, but now we're going to build a working model of our big plant at basically a bench scale and then up from there. And it's called a pilot plant. And so the funding that we're going to use, the work we're doing with ECU, and the pilot plant will be designed by CPC. That's actually going to be a very important part of the research project. Now, one of the things that's a great incentive in Australia is what they call the Research and Development Tax Incentive from the federal government. And that means that for every dollar that you spend on something that is legitimate research, you get 43 cents in the dollar back from the government. So one of the big things about Lake Hope, it's a unique deposit, it's got a unique process. And that means that most of the work that we do on that project, we're going to get 43 cents in the dollar back from the government. So if you combine the grants plus our R&D rebates, what we're looking at here is probably one of the cheapest pre-feasibility and definitive feasibility studies seen in the mining industry, just to add to all of the positives about Lake Hope. So it's all about raising money. We have no income, obviously, as a junior company. And so the more money we can raise in non-dilutive fashion, like grants, R&D rebates, it's just all fantastic for the company going forward. And we're looking forward to a busy year.
I'm sure the secured finances would help us expedite the project timelines. But let's move on to technology. So Lake Hope project, has its proprietary acid regeneration technology. So how does this innovation give Impact Minerals a competitive edge in the market with regard to cost and sustainability as well?
Many people have tried to make high purity alumina using hydrochloric acid in particular. Hydrochloric acid is a very aggressive digest. It works very well. The issue is it's quite expensive, and so one of the challenges that many companies have faced trying to get into production for high purity alumina is the cost of that hydrochloric acid. And so the nature of our material out of Lake Hope requires far less hydrochloric acid than other natural feedstocks. So that's the first indication that the cost is going to be lower. The second is that as a result of that, fairly standard acid regeneration processes will work and also keep the costs down. But the third one is the membranes. And we truly believe that the ceramic membranes that ECU are going to develop, which will allow hydrochloric acid to pass through and be cleaned up, could be the real game changer for us, over the next year or two. So combine all of those three things, add up to, an innovative process, hopefully a breakthrough in terms of the cost of production of high purity alumina.
So Dr. Jones, pilot plants are often a critical step in commercialization. So with the plans to establish one in 2025, what are the primary goals for this phase and how will it help secure offtake agreements?
That's the key focus of the research grant that we've got. And in the initial circumstance, we're going to build the pilot plant with the current process and then add the membranes in as and when Edith can develop the technology that's required to help us. So building that pilot plant, we hope to have that done within 6 months. That will allow us to do two things. So the first one, if you recall back when I was talking about resources and drilling, it's going to allow us to put lots of samples through from different parts of the lake. And so we'll get an understanding of how robust our process is for different parts of the lake. It'll work over the whole lake, but we just want to be 100% sure that when we take our material in, it's going to work in the plant. I've been around quite a long time, probably too long, according to some people, but I've seen a lot of metallurgical processes fail at the last minute because the right homework wasn't done at this particular point in the studies. And so we intend not to make that mistake. So with that pilot plant, we'll be able to put a lot of samples through and have a really detailed understanding of the variability just in that lake and how it's going to affect the pilot plant. The second thing it'll be able to do is provide samples of a consistent quality to potential offtake partners. So a couple of things we've discovered along the way is that customers really won't take you that seriously until you've got at least a pilot plant. If you're just going to do some in the lab, they've probably seen a dozen or 20 companies come and go, so we've got some small samples of HPA and they never come back because the process has proved to be too difficult. So we've learned from that. So we will not be handing material out until that pilot plant is working. We can take people through it, customers, and say, hey, we're here for the long term, take some material and go off and take and do some test work and make sure we can provide the material of the right quality, the right consistency, and over time. So one of the things I'll do is I'll take our sample, put it into their light emitting diodes and turn the switches on and off like 10,000 times, make sure that they work, just to simplify some of the test work. And there's a lot of product specification that needs to be done at that end, I will say. And then they'll come back to say, that looks pretty good, give me some more, give me a larger sample, and then we'll move on down that track and eventually look to get an offtake agreement.
Great. So this looks like a long-term success. So this next question which comes to my mind is that with the completion of your pre-feasibility study, which is set to trigger 80% of acquisition for the Lake Hope. So how does this milestone position Impact Minerals, from a long-term perspective?
The completion of the pre-feasibility study will definitely demonstrate to people in more detail and more definitively that we have a robust economic project here. I think that's what people are waiting for, just to make sure that everything we've said, it looks like it's in the ballpark. So far, as I said, the capital expenditure is looking pretty good. Working on getting the operating costs down a little bit. At that point, people will say, "Oh, look, this looks like they might have a serious project." In particular, because we have also now the grant money to help build that pilot plant. So we talked previously about going from a scoping study to a pre-feasibility study. The next step will be to go to a definitive feasibility study, which is basically repeating everything that we've done before, but in much more detail, hammering down the numbers, locking in those numbers, and all the processes, the logistics, etc., to a much greater degree, so we can then trigger a decision whether to mine this thing or not further down the track. So the beautiful thing about our pilot plant will be it'll provide us with most of the information that we're missing for the definitive feasibility study. Because the mining is so relatively straightforward, I don't see any problems at all getting that mining lease granted. We've got to do some more environmental studies and then some more native title studies. And the native title group, the NARJU, who are in that area, they're very pro-mining. They've already signed a couple of deals this year with other mining companies. And so it's about negotiating a mining agreement with them. Those are the only two things we need to do basically to get the mine approved. And that can happen over the next 12 to 18 months. The big focus will be on where to build the plant somewhere in this industrial area in Perth, and then what the logistics will look like, what the materials will look like, etc. And all of those will be answered by the work we're going to do in this research grant with building the pilot plant.
Beyond Lake Hope, Dr. Jones, you've also made strides with Barndog Mineral IPO and other exploration projects like Silica Hill and Commonwealth. So how did these align with your Lake Hope overarching strategy to unlock value for our stakeholders?
Impact Minerals, until we got Lake Hope, has always been an exploration company. And our aim was to find a world-class deposit and bring that into production. So we did find Lake Hope. I believe it's world-class. We didn't find it ourselves. We actually found it on LinkedIn, believe it or not. That's another story for another day. But the guy basically was advertising his project on LinkedIn, and we saw it and really liked what we saw. Over time then, as we bring the mine into production, it's clear that we'll have to get very, very focused and put most of our money and effort into that development. We do have quite a significant array of other projects that we've accumulated and put together over the years, and we've got great belief in all of those. And so rather than just sort of giving them away or dropping them, we're trying to maximize returns for shareholders by doing a number of things. The first one that we're attempting to get away is the Burrendong Initial Public Offering, IPO. That contained some very significant gold and silver assets that we have in New South Wales, in Eastern Australia, in a very prolific mining belt, very rich in gold and copper, called the Lachlan Fold Belt. If any of your investors are interested in investing in an exciting IPO, just go to our website and follow the links, and you'll be able to sign up. We're looking for some more investors. And so our idea then is that we will own some of the project still and also a shareholding in the new company. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that we have actually got a number of companies interested in joint venturing into one of our other projects, in particular in Western Australia, and that's our Arkham project. However, we've actually received some funding from the West Australian government to drill a significant copper target there called Caligula. And our plan is actually to drill that in the next quarter, so probably April, May this year. And we're putting that drill program together, some very exciting gold and copper numbers coming out of that. And we'll go ahead with that if we don't have a joint venture partner in the meantime. And then finally, we're also doing a bit of exploration on our own. I'm often quoted as saying, look, the pre-feasibility, as exciting as it is, it's not as exciting as drill holes. And so we're certainly looking to drill a few ourselves and just add a bit more exploration sizzle to the work we're doing at Lake Hope. So we're doing our best to maximise returns for all shareholders across the entire portfolio.
With Burrendong Minerals set to explore the Lachlan Fold Belt, a region which is so rich with world-class deposits. So what excites you most about the potential discovery in this particular area?
We had the project at Commonwealth for some time prior to handing it to Burrendong, and we also made a modest discovery at Silica Hill, which is nearby. They're all part of the same system. And the thing that we did a lot of research on was that deposit, Commonwealth in particular, is the only deposit that's anywhere in Australia that's very similar to the world-class Escape Creek project in another, which is in British Columbia. It's one of the world's great mines. It contains in excess of 10 million ounces of gold at an average grade of about 1 ounce per tonne, and it contains nearly 200 million ounces of silver. It's just an unbelievable deposit. And the Commonwealth is the only thing that looks like it in the whole of Australia, and that's why we picked it up. Did a lot of research on it. It just needs a lot of drilling done, and that drilling is actually fairly deep. And so that's what we're trying to do, is to raise funds, through the Burrendong IPO to get stuck into that project, basically from day one. So it's a very exciting set of targets that we're going to drill. So, and I will just add, we've got a fantastic ground holding at Broken Hill. So Broken Hill is the site of one of the world's great silver lead zinc mines, found in 1883, I think it was, and in New South Wales again. It's the world's largest lead deposit, huge. It's been in basically continuous production, and we're the largest ground holder around that particular world-class mine. And so we'll be looking to maximise our return on that from shareholders this year as well. So keep your eyes peeled for that.
Absolutely, we're tuned in. So for investors who've joined us and tuned in right now, what is Impact Minerals' key value proposition, and how do you plan to deliver the financial and operation milestones in the next 12 to 18 months, Dr. Jones?
We've kind of covered a lot of that in bits and pieces in the questions, but look, the focus is on Lake Hope. We're really looking to get the pilot plant built in the first 6 months or into the quarter 3 this year. That's going to help us provide samples out into the marketplace. We have a lot of market research going on at the moment. So I've just employed a marketing manager, Joseph Casella. He came to us from Tianchi Lithium here in Perth. Very well versed in particular in the battery space. He's been doing a very in-depth research into the market for HPA. So the back end of this year will be very much about engaging with clients, seeing what products they want and starting to design products for them going forward. And looking forward, the pre-feasibility studies we mentioned, end of this quarter, beginning of next quarter should be finished. And that'll set the financial metrics, and then we'll move into the definitive feasibility study. In the background, obviously, we've mentioned drilling. We look to drill our Caligula copper target. Definitely keep your eye on that. That should hopefully be in around about April. And then we're also putting together a big story at Broken Hill. So it's an exceptionally busy time as usual, and hopefully we can deliver on all of those goals during the year.
It's a busy time and so much exciting stuff is already on. So Dr. Jones, you've had an illustrious career in geology and now as the head of the company, heading the innovations in the critical mineral space. So what motivates you as a leader, and what legacy would you like to leave, for the industry folks to kind of, listen and get motivated as well?
I'm not sure exactly how illustrious my career has been, but we've certainly been running Impact for a long period of time. Look, it was always my goal in exploration was to discover something, of significance and build a mine around it, and and get that thing into production. And still would like to discover something 100% ourselves, and that's hence our drilling at Caligula and work at Broken Hill. But really, Lake Hope. If we can get Lake Hope into production. One of the things that perhaps isn't clear but should state is that there are high barriers to entry into the high purity alumina space. A lot of people have failed, and if we can get over that barrier, then it's going to open up a vast market for us and put us on a very clear path to financial success. And if I can do that, then I will have end my career on a high note. So it's been great. The second thing, of course, is actually leading a team. Leading a team is always challenging. We've built 3 teams over the 16, 17 years Impact has been in business, and very proud of the way that those people have come to us and have gone on to do a lot of great things. That people have worked for Impact, and so bringing people up through the ranks. We've employed a lot of overseas students, a lot of new graduates. And put together, I think, I wouldn't call it a training program as such, but the Impact School of Hard Knocks. We've been through the ringer over those 18 years, but look, we see light at the end of the tunnel now with Lake Hope and our other drilling, and so we've just got to keep running towards that light as fast as we can.
Dr. Jones, thank you so very much for sharing your vision and insights with us. Impact Minerals is not just innovating, but also shaping the future for critical minerals. To our audience, thank you so much for joining us on this journey into the future of mining and technology. Stay tuned to Colitco News Network for more meaningful stories, and you can also join us on colitco.com. Thank you so much once again, Dr. Jones, for your time.
Thank you very much.